Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Big Black Bear podcast. Now, I'm here, not with an expert or anyone like that, but I'm here with somebody I class as a very dear friend who I don't know how long ago it was. Maybe a couple of years ago. Is it longer than that? Shorter than that? I didn't even know who this lady was. But because of another podcast called A Cup of Tea and a Chat, and I have to explain this before we start. The fans of this particular podcast are called tea baggers, okay, ladies and gentlemen? So if you come, not that you're going to come into this podcast halfway through when we're talking about being tea baggers, that's the reason. The fans of A Cup of Tea and a Chat with Ali and Bean are called tea baggers. This lady that you can see here, or that you will be hearing in a second, is one of the prominent members of the teabagging community. And it doesn't matter how you try and say that, it always sounds bad. But ladies and gentlemen, Robyn is here. So hello, Robyn. How are you, my friend?
Hello. I do want to also preface this by saying we are not teabaggers by choice.
No.
That was not our...
That moniker was hoisted onto us, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so I like to say TB, like I remember like putting it on a social media or anything. I'm like, oh, the TB apostrophe S, because, or if I'm mailing a card, I'll put TB instead of Teabagger Pavo,
because the trouble is, somebody that doesn't know, you've always got to explain it. And it's a 5-10 minute conversation then of explaining. I remember talking about the podcast to my mum and dad, and just dropping it and saying, "Oh well, the tea baggers." And like, when my mum sort of looked shocked, I thought, "Hang on a minute, how do you know what a tea bagger is?" Was the first thing I thought.
That's number one.
That's question number one. Then question number two is then she's wondering why I'm being involved with that whole thing. So but there you go. So how are you? How have you been doing?
I'm okay. It's another day. It's the month of November.
It is.
And in about 2 weeks' time will be the 1-year anniversary.
Will it?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
of Jessica passing.
Yeah. See, now, this is the double-edged sword with this podcast, is because I've always said to people about, like, we want to talk about things and be honest and stuff like that. But I found in this is episode 4, and 3 of the podcasts have been with people that I know and people that I either like or love. Okay. And I keep making people cry. I don't like it.
Let me tell you this. Every episode that I've heard, I have cried. Yeah. So I think that's just being honest, though. I mean, that's,
I think you're right.
It'd be a lie, like if I just had my happy mask, like you've said on every podcast. But there is it's not reality, right? So like when I heard, is it Sarah, the comedian? What's her name? Karis. Okay. Yeah. That totally resonated with me, because she was saying how she just feels so alone, and after her dad passed, she didn't have anybody, and she doesn't have that person that knows in and out everything about her, or vice versa, right? So that just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I don't know either. It sucks.
Yeah. The thing is, and I said this about with Giles, who is the episode that will be coming out next Tuesday, and he lost his mum when he was very young, and lost his dad as well, and I've still got my parents, and I'm and they had me when they were young, so they're relatively young.
Yep.
But as with everybody, in the end, everybody is going to leave us, and it's how you deal with it. And the thing is, I'm emotionally unstable at the best of times about silly things.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of trying to work out how I'm going to react, and how I'm going to deal with that when that comes, because I don't know.
There's nothing that can prepare you for it. Nothing. Right. I mean, you can sit there and say, okay, well, I'm going to prep it, and I'm going to, get everything in order, and your parents can have everything in order. It still doesn't I still haven't taken her off my phone.
No.
I can't.
No. But then there's nothing wrong with that, is there? I don't think.
No, it makes
Oh
it
my
more of a
God,
reality.
we're 5 minutes in, Robyn.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's not you. I mean, that's life, though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Is that a way for you to deal with it, though? Is that a way for you to deal with it by not taking her number off your phone?
I don't know. I don't know why I haven't done it. I think if I do it, it's the finality of it.
Right.
Does that make sense? So,
Yes,
like,
absolutely. Yeah.
have you lost anybody close to you? I mean, like, grandparents or?
I mean, grandparents. My dad's mum.
Okay.
But she'd been ill for a while. So
okay.
it is
So
weird
you
with
knew
the
it was
fact
coming.
Yeah, we kind of knew that
Okay.
it was coming, and it was a shock when we got the call to say that it finally happened. But all I
Okay.
can remember feeling with that was just like numb. I didn't feel,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, I know that when we
Yeah.
had had to put our dog down back
Yeah.
in April.
Yep.
That's the nearest I think I've felt to feeling absolutely devastated. But then I've always got a
Yeah.
constant fear of something bad is going to happen to members of the family.
Yeah.
So that
And
is something, but that's not real. That's not a real thing, because that's just a fear in my
right.
head. That's not a tangible thing like you're going through, where something has happened and you have to deal with it.
Yeah. I think I've had, like, unfortunately, I've had a lot of loss in my life, but this was like, I'm going to sound so insensitive when I say this, but like grandparents and aunts and uncles and, older people, right? So you kind of know that that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was 35.
Yeah.
Like, that was like, she had been doing really well too. That was another thing that was like, she had gotten really sick and then she got a transplant and then she was doing amazing. Like, her doctors were shocked at how well she was doing, and then all of a sudden it spiraled. I mean, we don't even know what happened. She got sepsis and then she got better and then she just was gone. And so it was like, how do you even like wrap your head around that?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think somebody younger it's definitely, well, for me, it definitely hit me harder than, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my grandparents and I miss them tremendously, but it was also like, okay, they were way older and we knew that they were sick. They had breast cancer, they had lung cancer, they had all these issues. So I think, and again, nothing can prepare you for that. I mean, it still hurts, but it was just, I think this one's just so fresh and so, I don't know, she was my person. So, I mean, she knew everything. I mean, nothing was off limits. So it just makes it tough. So, I think listening to her and then listening to just other people, I was lucky enough to have that while I had it for 18 years, where some other people don't even get that. So I'm trying to look at the bright side, but I'm also like, but I'm still selfish and I still want her here. So it's like, it's hard. So,
but then you have to put into the thought you've got that in your head, and then it's just everyday shit that you've got to deal with as well.
Yeah. Don't get me started on that.
But that's what I mean. It's like I mean, this whole I've had this couple of weeks of feeling like depression. I've had a bit of depression, but then in the middle of that, having like kidney stones, and it was weird how when I had the kidney stones, I never once thought of the depression.
Right, because you have a physical pain.
Yeah, because there was nothing to dwell on, because all I could feel was this pain, this internal but physical pain, not emotional pain.
Right.
But it was weird how I had one day a couple of days ago where I actually it subsided quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
So I thought, I'm going to listen to some music. I listened to 2 Taylor Swift songs.
And you were done for.
Absolute flood of tears. And I was sat on my kitchen floor just crying my eyes out. And it was weird. It's like, it's that balance of, okay, so what would I rather have? Would I rather have this emotional pain that is hurting like my brain, or this physical pain which I can't do anything about?
Yeah. What I know, and we've talked on and off the podcast. So I know you've been having, are those subsiding your kidney stones or?
Well, I not to get too graphic, but
Yeah.
I passed something.
Okay.
I've been weeing into a sieve for the last
Yep.
week,
Yep.
and
That's always fun.
I did pass something.
Okay.
I'm supposed to have had. Oh, I've got a 4 millimeter stone in my right kidney.
Right. Yep.
What I passed
Wait,
was no way 4 millimeters. It was.
but
It was
could
a
it
little.
have broken down
It
with
could
your
have possibly.
medication?
It could have possibly
Yeah.
broken down. So I'm kind of
Okay.
hoping that that's like the worst of it over. I'm not feeling, touch wood, I'm not
Yeah.
feeling too bad today. I've had to make sure I'm just drinking loads and obviously all of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
So well, with that, like your depression, right? You've never been able, do you know what is causing it? Because you've said like you had a happy childhood, you have a great relationship, you've got great kids, you've got great grandkids. Like there's nothing, I don't want to say there's nothing, but you haven't figured out what that.
no, I know that a lot of it I think is when things are going well is when the big black bear tends to come and visit. I think it's almost that feeling of things are going too well, so something bad is going to happen.
Have you ever had long stretches of things that bad are happening? And I'm not a psychiatrist or anything.
No. It's a good question, because what tends to happen with me is it'll be like during those bouts of depression, two or three things will happen all around, and sometimes it'll be silly things like something bad will go wrong with a car, so you've got to pay some money, but then something else will happen. It'll always be, and I've said it before, there'll always be layers. It'll be two or three things that will all happen at the same time. Now I don't know if that's happening because I'm feeling depressed or it's because I'm depressed those things are happening. I don't know which way round it is.
Well, could it also be that because one thing has happened and now this is another thing on top of it, that it magnifies it? It's kind of like that domino effect, or it's just because it's just their last straw, right? Like
I think you're absolutely right.
There's only so much you can handle, and then the car happens, and you're like, well, I mean, what else is going to go wrong?
Yeah, and I think it also, for me, especially this bout, it's no coincidence that like the walking and the exercising that I've done for the last 500 odd days has definitely, I've not been on top of that for the last, say, 100 days as much as I want to, and the healthy eating. So all of that kind of stuff, I'm feeling crap because of that. I'm feeling crap because I'm not getting the good enough exercise, and all of that then manifests itself, I think, into the kidney stones, and it's all a mishmash of all the same thing. But it's like I was talking to Neil, who I do the top 10 podcast with earlier on. The other thing I find is like it's very hard to talk to somebody about it, and I'm even with talking with you, Robyn, I find it hard because like Neil hasn't worked since December because he broke his kneecap.
Yep.
You've physically lost someone that you love. Okay. So I feel like such a pussy in saying, well, I've had a couple of bad weeks. No, I've had a kidney stone. And I'm complaining about that because it's affecting my brain. But other people are going through so much worse. So much worse.
I know what you're saying.
Break
I've
one
been
down.
There. Well, I've been there because you don't, and you might not know. Okay, so physically I've lost someone. Neil physically hasn't worked in months. But there could be other things that are going on. Like there's plenty of other things that I don't discuss or talk about, not because I'm ashamed of it or anything like that. It's just like I don't want to be looked at, and I don't really give a shit what anybody thinks about me, but I also don't want it to be like, oh, she's just complaining about having to pay for her car getting fixed or whatever the case is, right? So I think people they don't want to say anything because it does look like that, but you never know what other people are. It's kind of like that. Don't judge a book by its cover because you don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
Yeah. So
you may think, oh, I've had a bad couple of weeks, but in all reality, I could have had a bad couple of weeks just because of whatever. And like I physically or personally, I've started seeing a therapist for just my own good wishes, or I don't know,
peace of mind, like, and
just to kind of help me go through things. And partially, I think part of it is to deal with Jessica. but also just like other things, like with Dan and we've also started seeing as a couples counselor. So there's nothing wrong with it. And I know why you feel like you feel like a pussy for, going through your issues. But if you don't talk about it, it's never going to get better, I
No,
think.
I
And
completely agree.
and
Completely
it
agree.
doesn't you should be open, like you should be able to have somebody that you can talk to, whether it's me, Neil, your wife, your grandson, whoever it's going to be, so you can at least talk those things through. Because I think if you don't, then you're just bottling it up, and then it just adds more, right? So now it's just another layer that, okay, so now your car is broken, and then this happened, and then the kidney stones, and then the walking, and then this, and then something small is going to happen. Customer service is going to take 5 hours to get back to you, and that's just going to throw you off, and you're just going to lose your shit, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's definitely, you're not alone in that, and I feel like there's so many people who don't want to say anything because there's always somebody else that has it worse, and but you're entitled to the feelings that you have. I think that's the difference. Like, and not to put it back on me, but like my medical issues that I've been dealing with, and I actually just this morning I was talking to my dad, and I said, I'm tired of being sick. I'm tired of literally every doctor that I go to. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, this is wrong, and it's like, I'm just physically tired. Like, it gets to be a lot. And I try not to say anything about, because like, oh, okay, you just had another surgery. It's not that big of a deal. You wanted that surgery. I wanted it, but I've also had 9 prior to that. Like, I also don't want to be in any pain anymore. And it's like, I try not to get down about it, but then, because in my head, I'm like, somebody else has it worse. Somebody else is going through their 3rd round of chemo. Somebody else is going through whatever it is that they're going through. And somebody had told me, that's fine that they're going through that, but you have the right to be upset about what you're going through, because what you're going through also nobody else has to go through. So, I think everybody's entitled to their own feelings about whatever it is that they're going through, whether it's a small bout of depression or, and I do air quotes in that for those of you that are not watching. And it to you that might seem like a small thing, but internally it's big. It's bigger than what you think it is. So I definitely, I'm glad that you put this podcast together, because it does get you to at least talk about things and like maybe hear about it from a different person's perspective. And it was interesting listening to Laws, how she said, like, I'm fine being home and in with my kid, in with my husband, and that's a perfectly fine day to me. And I think a lot more people are like that more than they lead on to be. I think they're a lot happier being home in their own little bubble, and they have to put on this like show. Okay, yeah, I want to be out all the time, and it's like, but I really don't want to be.
I
And
mean, that's the thing. Is the thing is that, again, I'm sure if I went to a therapist, and I am thinking about maybe doing that, but the one of my main flaws is that I am constantly trying to get into other people's heads, thinking what they're thinking. Do you know what I mean? So, and also second guessing. Like, so if you message somebody and they don't message you back straight away, I straight away think, well, I've pissed them off somehow. What have I done? And it's not, and it almost feels like it's narcissistic, because it's all about me. So
right.
what have I've done something to those people so they don't like me anymore. Where it's not, where it's like you said, someone maybe is just going through a bad day like you're having. So, they may have not picked their phone up, or they may be actually going through some shit that they, need to sort out before they come and talk to you again. So there's a fine line between it being, what's wrong with me is in my head, so I'm the only one living it. So that's where it is to me. But other people that I'm trying to reach out to, or even just genuinely chatting to, they've got their own shit to deal with.
Well, it was interesting. I don't remember whose episode it was, but you were saying that you were always wondering about, if you go out, let's say you go out to the bar or the library, wherever, the grocery store, you're always wondering, that person just looked at me. What are they thinking? What are they talking about? What are they? And it was interesting. I wonder what is triggering that internally for you. Like, what makes you think, like, A, that they're talking about you? Not that they're not, but I mean, I don't know. But well, I wonder what that is internally for you. Like, has it always been like that, or just recently, or like the last couple of years?
I honestly, I mean, as far as I can remember,
Really?
But I mean, I'm sure again, if a therapist would dig right deep down, and
Yeah.
it would be something to do with, and again, I've always said, like, there is no trauma in my life
Hmm.
that I can think of. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I was going to say maybe that you don't think is trauma, but maybe that it is.
Yeah, but if I talk to people, or if I hear about people and they say, "Oh well, in my childhood this happened, or I had that happening," I think, well,
Hmm.
I had none of that. Okay, we weren't mega rich, but we would go on holiday. We wouldn't go abroad, but we would, like, I talked to my wife about it, and and my wife's upbringing to my upbringing,
Hmm.
I was so lucky to have the
Hmm.
upbringing that I had. I had two parents that loved me. I mean, we're not saying that I could, like I say, I couldn't have everything I wanted, but
Right.
at Christmas and birthdays we had
Yeah.
presents. There are people that I know that didn't have that, you
Yeah.
know.
No, for sure.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, like I say, if I went to a therapist, they could
Hmm.
really muscle down and go, well, look, there's this little chink here that actually, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's go down that route.
It's the
You
gold
know,
mine, right?
well, it
They're gonna
is.
find it.
It absolutely
Well,
is. For one person, what one person's perfect childhood would be another
yeah.
person's. Hang on a minute. There's some flags there. I mean, that bit there, you should be
Yeah.
talking about that. I mean,
Huh.
I've always had issues with my weight. So
Hmm.
I've always wanted to be. I never had a fight. I've never had a fight in my life. Right?
Neither have I.
I've never had a fight in my life. When I was a kid, if I used to get bullied, I would make them laugh to leave me alone.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Have you ever been bullied? Because that could be maybe you said that you had this great upbringing, but maybe the bullying
Yeah,
issues.
I mean, I wouldn't say that it was a massive problem, and I don't know. Looking back on it now, could it
Hmm.
have been that I preempted bullying by trying to be friends with everybody, by
Ah,
trying to be I was always the class clown. So
yep.
every school report would be, he could do better if only he sort of like applied himself in class
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
stopped trying to make everybody laugh.
And stop
So
talking all the time.
and stop
And
talking all that. Yeah, and I would be the
yep.
person, so that if there was ever anybody that was going to get told off, not for being rude or anything, even my mum would say that we were always, me and my brother were always very, very polite to people. If we stayed
Hmm.
at a friend's house or whatever. But
Yeah.
in school, I would always be the person. So maybe preempting, maybe people wouldn't bully me, but because I was a bigger kid, I always
Yep.
thought, they're going to bully me, so I'm going to make them laugh. So they're like my
Yeah.
mates instead. I mean,
Yeah.
look, there you go,
Maybe.
Robyn. You might have found that chink there, that
There
little
you go.
chink
I'll
in
send
the
you the
armor.
bill. Forget sending it to Cheryl. You're going to send it to me.
Oh my God, it's going to cost me a
uh,
fortune, this podcast.
you're going to have to get some sponsors.
I'm going to have to. Oh my God, wouldn't that be good? Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how does that work in regards to you? So your everyday life, I mean, I think everybody gets depressed. It just depends on how they deal with it. Some people can push it under the
yeah.
carpet and not worry about it. How do you deal with it day in, day out?
I try to go walking and I try
Right.
to at least get, if I can, at least get an hour in just to listen to my podcast, listen to music, or just be without my dog, be without my husband, because it's just me and it's for me, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessarily to be, I mean, to be healthy, that's always a bonus, right? But I think just walking, but that also is a double-edged sword, right? Because then I start, a song will trigger me, and then I'm just crying around the track, and then, and it's like, but it's also, I've started going to therapy, and I don't know that it's necessary. I mean, it's not going to fix me right away. Like nothing's going to take away the pain, but have you heard of the grief ball?
No, I haven't. Should
It's
I ding that?
no, it's the grief ball, and it's no, it's basically it's a box, right? And it's a ball that just bounces in the box. And with grief, when it first starts, when something first happens, the ball is very big, right? So the ball doesn't really have far to go. But once it starts lessening, and not that the hurt's ever going to go away, but it gets smaller and it gets it bounces around more. And so it's an interesting way to think about it. But I think just talking about it, it's definitely helped. I mean, I'm not cured. It's not going to ever go away. Just finding different ways to go about it. Me personally, my husband's not very emotionally, I don't want to say available because he'll let me cry on his shoulder all the time, but he's not good with his emotions. So I feel kind of, I feel weird if I come home after a walk and I'm like, oh, you froze. Oh, okay.
No, there you go.
There you are. So I mean, I come home and I'm like, okay, I better get all my tears out while I'm out, in the car or whatever first before getting home. And then I had told my therapist that, and she's like, you need to tell your husband that because, he needs to be there for you, whether he's emotionally available or not. You need to tell him what you need. So if I'm home and I'm upset about Jessica or XYZ or whatever's happening, I need you to just hug me and just don't say anything. And, I came home and I told him that, and he's like, I've never stopped you. And I'm like, I know that was me. That was my feeling. So just like you saying it internally, that's how I just kept it inside. And then I was like, I'm not getting it out. I'm not crying enough. I'm not, and there's never going to be a perfect thing that's going to happen or that's going to stop it, or there's never a right answer. But I think definitely talking about it makes me feel better. And that's kind of how I deal with things. And I definitely have my dog. My dog's my therapy too, just because he's just adorable and he's kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. But he's also, he's the one that I cry to when I'm just sad. And I don't think there's any one size fits all for depression at all. Like, 'cause sometimes you just have your days, and sometimes I do kind of stay off social media though. So our mutual friend Anna, I mean, I used to talk to her, I would say almost every day, and I had to step back, not necessarily because of any reason in particular, but I do feel like a lot of people are on social media constantly all the time, and you only put your best things on social media, right? So social media is filled with unrealistic expectations. So if I see something on social media and it's all people dolled up and living their full, rich fantasy lives, like, that's not reality. Let's be honest. Like, there's those Instagram things where it's like Instagram versus reality, and it's like the full dressed up, all together photo versus like the kids just screaming and crying in the background and whatever. And it's like, I wish more people were just true on social media, because I think it's more damaging than it is good.
Do you not think that? Do you not think that's their escape though? That's people's, especially places like TikTok, is where you get those 2-3 minute videos of, and you know that those people are smiling for those 2 or 3 minutes, and then when they press stop the record button.
I don't have TikTok.
Do you not? No. And the trouble is, it's like you say, you start looking through social media, and before you know it, you've spent 3 hours.
And that's the problem. And
that is the problem.
I feel like for me personally, I'll go down so many rabbit holes, and I'm like, so if I look at the top 10 of anything podcast, right? And I'm just using that as an example. So if I get to the top 10 Taylor Swift song, that's a good episode. That is a
great episode. We had some fantastic guests on that episode. We really did.
I think so too. So if I go down that, right, and then all of a sudden I'm now on a For You page for Taylor Swift, and then I'm watching Taylor Swift in Mexico City, and then I'm watching a Swiftie dictate everything from the show, and like, I'm like, how did I even get here?
Exactly.
Like, and I'm like, it's 3 a.m. I gotta be up in 2 hours. Like, and I just think for myself personally, I tend to honestly, I read it like right before I go to bed, and I look at the 5 or 10 people that I follow that I, like have you heard of Elise Myers?
Name rings a bell.
She's I wouldn't even say a comedian. She's just a normal person, and she doesn't do herself up. She literally, her hair is all over the place in all of her videos. And she's very, very relatable. She talks about depression. She talks about her anxiety. She talks about her hyperfixations. And for me, I'm like, that's good for me, because that's just real. I'm not going to go follow Kim Kardashian and look at her multi-million-dollar Halloween thing that just came up, or something about her Halloween decorations, because that's not attainable to me. That's not something I can relate to. Elise Myers, on the other hand, she talks about, she was crocheting. She's learned how to crochet, and she's like, last night on her thing, she was crocheting, listening to the new Taylor's version in 1989.
Oh,
and
right,
she's
okay.
like, just listening to this, not even knowing that, these are some really depressing song lyrics. And it's like, that is relatable. Like Kim Kardashian, not.
No.
I just can't. And so to me, my time on social media is on people that are going to benefit me. And, like there's a comedian that I follow, I'm looking at his thing because his whatever lanyard is right here. He's something that gives me something to look forward to, right? Like he's funny, and I'm not going to sit there and I can't do it for my own mental health. I cannot go down 5,000 rabbit holes that mean absolutely nothing to me. Like you get down those things and it's like, why am I reading about a 5-year-old kid in Dallas, Texas that I'm never going to meet? Why do I care about this kid?
I know.
He might have a good story, but it's like, I can't spend my time on things that don't matter to me. And that's not going to impact me. And it's not to be selfish, but my dad said something today, and both my parents have said this to me. They said, you do way too much. And I'm like, I don't know what I do. I'm home all the time. Like I go out for an hour at the track. Like what are you guys seeing that I'm not? Because maybe I'm doing something that I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he said, you talk to so many people, you are friends to so many people, and it takes time to communicate with those people. Because to have a conversation, to text someone, and I'm not a big texter. I like talking on the phone. And that's just me. And I know a lot of people aren't like that, but I'd rather have a phone conversation, because the text, you never know how somebody's like meaning what they type. You know what I mean? So
things can be read different ways.
For sure. So he's like, I know you are on the phone and you're talking to these people, or you're writing them letters, or that takes time. And when he said that, I was like, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think for me, that's what I need, because I live out in the country, in the boonies, in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
I don't have friends in this area. And I haven't been able to meet any, because when we moved here, COVID happened, and that was a whole mess. So it's either the teabagger community or what, right? So, or it's my friends that I talk to and I have those meaningful conversations, but it's something that means something to me. So I'm not going to spend my time on social media if I can rather have a conversation with somebody in person. So, but then anyway,
that's the beauty of then social media. That's the beautiful side of social media, is things like the teabagger community, where I mean, you've been a part of it longer than I have, but it's an amazing community where 99.9% of everybody is looking out for each other. Yeah, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Yeah, because you've only got to put on there that not feeling myself today. Yep. And then you'll get nothing but messages saying, we're thinking about you, we've got you, we've got your back. And and again, for me personally, it's helped massively over the last few weeks. The messages that I've got from people, the messages from yourself, just every so often, just checking in, making sure you're okay. Yep. It means the world. It really does, because you can be in that little you can be under that little black cloud and thinking to yourself, well, nothing I do makes any difference. Nothing I say means anything to anybody. Yep. And there's people out there that will tell you that you mean something. And the trouble is, when I say this, it always makes it sound like my wife is like, doesn't give a shit. I mean, she does. Right. It's just that I find it hard to talk to people about it, because it's nothing to do with the people that are there. And I know that if I wanted to, I could have 20 people straight away fighting to come and say, well, talk to me. Yep. Yep. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste their day with my shit. Yep. So it's I know it's me. I know I'm the problem. It's not that there isn't.
You're not the problem.
No, but you know what I mean. I know. I'm the barrier, if you like. I'm the thing that's stopping the flowing of goodwill, because I'm thinking I'm not gonna open up to that person, that person, that person.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas those people are there waiting for me to come and say, "Oh, can we just chat? Is it okay if we just chat a minute?" Because I don't know about you. I'm, and I've said this before, I'm great at giving advice, but I would never take the same advice that I give out, ever.
So I'm gonna tell you what my husband told me, and it's in a different context, but it's the same message, right? So when I had met Dan, I was in a mental space of not being with anybody. I was violently ill. I mean, throwing up every day. I mean, 17 times a day. It was brutal. So I was not even in the mindset of like even wanting to entertain the idea of meeting anybody. And when he asked me for my number that night, I was like, "Why do you want it?" And he said, "So I can call you." And when we first went out on our first date, I said, I'm not looking for anything. And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I don't think it's fair to bring somebody down with me, right? So just like you're saying, I don't think it's fair for me to have to bog people down, and it's not their responsibility. It's not, they don't want to hear it. I'm going to, I'm going to bring them down." And I'll never forget it. He said, "Well, you shouldn't make that decision for other people. You shouldn't make it. So
great point.
You don't want to bring anybody else down. What if that person wants to be around with you, so you're not going through it alone?" And he said, "You shouldn't make that decision for everybody else." And I was like, holy shit. Oh, okay. And here we are 11 years later. So, and I only say that because that's exactly what you're saying. Like if myself, right, if I call you and say, "Hey, if you want to talk, call me. I don't care what time it is, call me." That's an open invitation. That's not, and I know it's hard, right? I know it's hard to actually say, "You know what, I am going to take you up on that." But if all those 20 people are giving you that open flow, take it when you need it, because they're offering it. They're not going to offer there are some people who are just going to say, "Oh yeah, call me when you need me." And then they're going to be like, "Oh, well, I don't really want you to call me."
Yeah.
You know who those people are. So, I mean, I give that piece of advice just because it was very profound to me when he said it. And I was like, "Oh, all right. Those people that do want to be in my life, they will make the time and the effort, and they'll know when I'm down. And they know that when I need a pick me up, that they'll call and say, 'Hey, what's going on? You okay? Let's talk about it.'" So I just think
that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough. I know, and I'm the same way. Like I'll give advice all day long, and then I'm like, "You want me to do what I just said? Not happening." It's hard.
It's a strange thing, though, isn't it? Because I think the people that are really good advice givers are just the ones that would never take that advice.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
It's strange. It's really strange.
It's very odd.
It's kind of the "do as I say, don't do as I do" kind of thing, I suppose.
Yeah. And I don't think that it doesn't make your wife sound like she just doesn't give a shit, because my husband's the same way. Yeah. It's super hard. And like I told you when you said that those that are close to you, they get the shit end of you. And I think that's because, like my therapist said, like you feel comfortable enough to, I don't want to say you treat them like shit, because I don't think that you do, but you can be comfortable being yourself, and you can be an asshole. You can, and you know that you're going to get away, quote unquote, get away with it, because they're going to love you no matter what. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, the thing is, the last couple of weeks, the last 3 weeks, I don't think I've cried as much without even thinking about it as I have over the last 3 weeks. And there's been a couple of times when I've just been talking. Well, one of the prime moments was my wife was baking some cakes, and she made me a cake, just a little cupcake, and gave me it. And I said thank you, and just started crying. And she said, "Oh, you haven't even tasted it yet." And I said, "No, it's not." I said, "It's just a lovely thing. Yeah, a lovely thing for you to do." And my wife is very good at I've said this in a previous episode, compartmentalizing her emotions so she can get on with the job that she needs to do. Whereas I'm terrible for layering it on and not being able. And I would love to be able to do that, because that is one of her strengths. Is like in massive adversity, she's very narrow-minded and straight, and knows what to do. You know, in a crisis, she knows what to do. She's got a great gut reaction. If something doesn't feel right, she knows not to go with it. Whereas I'm emotionally driven and like, oh, that looks good over there. Let's go and do that. And then you realize, bollocks, I shouldn't have done that at all.
Right. I should have listened to her.
Exactly. God, if I had £1 for every time I said I should have listened to her, God. I wouldn't need to work. I just wouldn't need to work. Man. Before we sort of finish and say goodbye, I'll tell you one thing. This isn't really emotion or depression, but whenever I talk to, or even I think about any of you guys, any of the teabagging community, I don't know whether it's a little England thing to think.
That's my bell. Sorry.
Is that your bell?
There we go. It was way over there, so I couldn't get to it. I couldn't get to it fast enough.
Don't worry. I always think whenever I'm seeing any of you guys chatting or I'm chatting to you, I always think that you guys, because you live in America, have a glamorous life. I always think that. I always think that you know, they're in America, so they're probably just sitting by the pool all day and they're not actually working and you know, because they live in America. Nah. I take it isn't like that, is it?
Well, for myself, I will tell you, summer months, I am by my pool. But I also work from the pool. I have my Bluetooth speaker and all that. But no, Anna's, I don't know how much it snowed there, but she's in snow right now. So
I did see, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how much she has, but no, we don't all have this glamorous life. But I mean, over there, aren't you guys always out by the pubs and drinking and just having a jolly old time? So
no. I mean, to be fair, it's funny you should say that because I was only talking to my dad a couple of nights ago, and we were just saying about in the town that we live in now. I think there are only three pubs. I think now, where there used to be.
How big is your town?
It's I don't know. How would measure it?
How many population? What is the population in your town?
Good question.
I'm so big on population.
I would probably. If you give me 5 minutes, let me just go out and I'll go and count them all. I don't know whether 50,000 would that sound about right? I don't know.
Well, I say so. Fayetteville is 250,000. However, that includes the military base, and the military base is huge. So
okay.
I would say 75,000, maybe.
Yeah, I mean it's quite a big town. We've got a big church. We've got there's not that much to do, to be fair, but there's quite a lot of what we call housing estates all around the town. When I say housing estates, it's basically houses in areas.
Like is it
not like a gated community. It's not like that kind of thing. It's just.
But do you have HOAs there? I don't know if you do.
What's that?
Homeowners association. So like you pay them dues to like do the lawn, or all the houses have to be painted the same color.
Right. No, not particularly. No, I mean we do have things like what are called council houses, if you like, and I'm doing the so that's where the local council owns the houses, so you rent off of them rather than buying houses. But things like having to have all the colours the same and stuff like that, it's not like that. It's basically just different areas of the town. So we live in what's known as the Beaches Estate. So that's our area, and there's loads of different places. I mean, it's probably I'd say about 50,000 people that live. But it's always getting bigger. But it's also we live in a part of England where you are like 10-15 minutes away from a motorway, so you could be in London in an hour, or you could be you could go to the coast within an hour. So we're in a nice area. Plus, we're in a nice area. There's lots of countryside, and so we're very lucky in that sense. But for kids, I mean, there's nothing for kids to do around here. It's
cow tipping.
Well, yeah, I mean cow tipping. Yeah, we could do that. Why so much moo? Why so
exactly?
Why so much moo? But you're gonna have to save up and come over so I can show you and Dan the sights. You see.
I've always told him I never had any desire to go there. I don't know
Really?
why. And he's already gone. He went to Paris, he went to London, and
Right.
I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's so dreary and gray and rainy, and I can't deal with that. Like that just gets me. That right there alone is depressing.
I was going to say, if you're coming to England for the weather, you're going to be very, very disappointed. If you come to England or Britain for the history, that's a different thing, because especially if you've only got to walk. Oh, I didn't mean to press the bell then. I don't know what's going on. But if even just walking around the streets of London is I mean, I've been to London loads of times, but I still get fascinated walking around the streets of London, because it's just the history that's just like, and even in our town, we were in the Roman times, we were the second largest town in the UK, in England. You had London, and then you had Corinium, which is what we were called. Roman Corinium. So there you go. And a little history lesson for you there.
Crying, it's everything.
This podcast is literally
everything.
My
goodness.
Robyn, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for coming to join me. Honestly, I'm not, what's the word? I'm not precious to say I love you, Robyn.
Well,
I genuinely
love you too, Todd. And whatever you need, and that's not just me blowing smoke up your hoo-ha.
No. I'm going to ding that one.
But I mean that, and I told you months ago, if you ever to call this house or call the phone and Dan gets it in the middle of the night, you are on that list for me to wake up for. So
that's bless your
heart. I mean that.
So absolutely, you are a wonderful, lovely person, and I can't wait.
Yes.
I'm so
excited. I'm so excited.
I'm literally, I don't know whether I will laugh or cry. I will probably cry.
I'm probably going to cry.
Yeah,
so It's going to be good.
We've only got a few months to wait, so I'm sure we could do a Big Black Bear live, couldn't we? With just the two of us in the same room.
There you go. And Anna's going to be there.
Anna's going to be there. It's going to be amazing.
Brandon, it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait.
I can't wait as well. Right, I need to read all these. So if you want to get in touch, please email bigblackbearpod@gmail.com. We're on all the podcast thingies, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, Good Pods. And then come and find us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram. And also, if you enjoy the podcast but you need some urgent help, then please call the Samaritans. In the UK, it's 116-123, and in the US, it's 1-800-273-TALK. That's 273-8255. And come and listen to the other podcasts as well, the top 10 of anything.
Or if you want to add on to that, in the US, it's also 988 now is the number.
Oh, is it? What? So just 988 on its own?
Yeah, so it's like a 911, but it's 988, and that's the suicide hotline number.
988. So. Thank you very much for that, Robyn.
Of course.
Again, thank you, Robyn. Bless your heart. You have a lovely, lovely day, and
you have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hopefully you get some sleep.
Time for bed. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye, friends.